The games industry is burning, and I'm not being dramatic. 10,000 people lost their jobs in 2023, and we passed that number just 6 months into 2024. This isn't just studios with bad games and poor sales. Tango was shuttered almost immediately after dropping one of the highest rated games of the year. A game that Xbox's own vice president said they, quote, couldn't be happier with. Here's what's really disturbing. Look at these numbers. Something does not add up here. To understand what's happening, we need to follow the money, and more specifically, follow the MBAs. See, there's a specific playbook these suits are following. It was written by a man who thought the best way to run a company was to set fire to 10% of everyone who was working there. This is Jack Welch, and he's the reason why your favorite studio just got shut down.
For General Electric, here is Ronald Reagan.
Record closes for the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, and massive job cuts coming to General Electric.
50% of the employees laid off.
Cutting 12,000 jobs.
The stock market went up. That's what's happening now.
That's business.
That probably sounds hyperbolic, but stick with me and I promise this will all make sense by the end. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to a time when American business was fundamentally different. The mid-1900s. These were basically the golden age of capitalism in America. Back then, the corporate focus was wildly different. The focus was on longevity, and believe it or not, employee and community happiness. Companies would take a long-term outlook on things. Often budgeting for research and development, they knew they would take a decade or more to pay off. And as long as the company was profitable, they were happy with small returns. This post-war era, sometimes referred to as welfare capitalism by economists, saw businesses investing in their workers, providing lifelong employment, and fostering a sense of community. Companies at this time provided all kinds of amenities, building parks, theaters, and even schools and hospitals. Companies like GE weren't just faceless corporations, they were integral parts of the local fabric. They took pride in paying their employees well and ensuring job stability. Their shareholder reports from the time, I shit you not, actually brag about giving their employees a raise. The motto was employee first, company second, shareholders third. Imagine that today. The idea was that a happy, secure workforce was a productive one. And this wasn't just rhetoric, it was truly the foundation of corporate America at the time. A time when the American dream was within reach for many. Enter one man, Jack Welch. Jack took capitalism from a system that benefited those participating in it into a system that benefited a handful of men at the expense of everyone else. He basically invented the layoff, popularizing what he called the rank and yank system, where he'd regularly fire 10% of everyone working at the company and push for acquisitions over innovation. Take GE's Appliance Park. Before Jack, it was a sprawling manufacturing hub in Louisville, Kentucky, operating since 1953. It employed tens of thousands of people. When Jack became CEO in 1981, Appliance Park was profitable. But for Welch, it just wasn't profitable enough. He wanted more. So he fired over half the workers there. Less employees to pay means more money for shareholders. This pattern repeated across GE at tremendous human cost, with 100,000 people laid off in just his first 5 years of CEO. With thousands of Americans left jobless, entire communities were devastated. Our manufacturing centers were reduced to a shadow of their former selves, as the middle of America was surgically hollowed out to fatten his wallet. These layoffs were timed to boost shareholder reports, creating a facade of profitability improvements. Capitalism had been forever changed. Welch even dismantled GE's renowned research and development department. The company that invented the light bulb, plastic, and even the fucking X-ray just stopped innovating. He shifted the focus instead to acquiring smaller companies who had their own patents and intellectual properties, only to sell them off or shut them down a few years later. Sound familiar? Jack Welch simply believed that business gets in the way of making money. His tactics, prioritizing short-term stock growth, let's call it Welchnomics, sacrificed company health, innovation, and employee well-being, all while making Welch one of the richest men in America. Wait, hold on a minute. I thought this was about video games. Why are we talking about some old dude who worked in an appliance company like 40 years ago? Wow, that's a great question to me. The thing is, his management style, it worked. Kinda. GE's stock under Welch saw record growth unseen in any American company before it. Shareholders saw ruthless cost cutting and bought more stock, setting the value of GE up and rewarding his methods. And other CEOs in America were like, damn, I want some of that. And so they started to copy him, laying off their own historically lifetime employees, prioritizing acquisitions over internal innovation. This methodology started to be taught in business schools across the country as the way to lead a business. We wouldn't know the long-term effects of this management style until much later, when the financial crisis of '08 revealed that GE had been transformed into a husk that wasn't actually producing anything of tangible value, acting more like an investment firm, buying and selling smaller companies to fluff up the numbers before shareholder reports.
It's all a fugazi. Fugazi, it's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a fairy dust. It doesn't exist.
But by this point, the damage was done. So here we are today. As Jack's methods become the standard in American business school, a new generation of executives emerged who followed his playbook, whether they knew it or not. And nobody followed that playbook more closely than Bobby Kotick. First, just like Welch, he built his empire through acquisitions. Raven Software, Neversoft, Treyarch, Infinity Ward, and the $18 billion USD Fendi acquisition merger, which brought Blizzard, one of gaming's most respected developers, under Kotick's control. This was a studio known for taking their time, releasing games when they're ready. World of Warcraft, Diablo, StarCraft, genre-defining games built on innovation and polish. But under Kotick's leadership, founders left, veteran developers were pushed out, and release schedules were accelerated. By 2021, Blizzard teams were being redirected to Call of Duty support. The studio that once took pride in canceling games that didn't meet their standards was now rushing out mobile games and Diablo Immortal microtransactions. He perfected Welch's cost-cutting playbook, forcing managers to label employees as bottom performers for future layoffs that they timed with quarterly reports. The pattern was always the same. In 2019, they had their best financial year in company history. They also laid off 800 employees. In 2020, they hit record profits again and had another round of layoffs. In 2021, revenue soars, bringing in billions USD in profit, and still, we see more layoffs. Innovation is not profitable enough. Original games were canceled in favor of reliable sequels. 6 releases of Guitar Hero in a single year? Oh, thank you, Daddy Kotick. By 2021, Kotick had earned over $400 million while systematically gutting beloved studios. And his final move? Selling to Microsoft for a cool $69 billion. Nice. Kotick isn't alone. Take John Riccitiello, an MIT Sloan MBA, where Welch's methods were taught as core curriculum. Welch literally taught classes at his school. John had the honor of taking EA from an icon in the gaming industry,
EA Sports, it's in the game,
into literally the most hated company in America 2 years in a row. In a play right from Jack's book, John acquired BioWare in an effort to boost company stock, and over the next few years shut down any costly innovation. EA went from challenge everything to charge everything. Their innovation was figuring out how to add in more microtransactions. Instead, they prioritized sequels to established IPs. As just one of many examples, he closed down Pandemic Studios just 2 years after acquiring them. Nearly 1,500 people across EA lost their jobs because of that closure. I'll repeat that. 1,500 people lost their jobs, and at the next shareholder meeting, John was awarded a $7 million stock bonus. John's other claim to fame, aside from leading the largest layoffs in EA history, is popularizing the microtransaction. Yeah, we have him to thank for all of this. After exploiting beloved IPs, closing several studios, canceling dozens of games, and making EA the most hated company in America, John was hired as CEO of Unity. Unreal. Here, he earned decades of goodwill and alienated their core consumer base. I don't need to go over it here, I'm sure you've heard about that already. It's just another move by a Jack Welch-inspired executive, chasing short-term profit without regard for the long-term health of the brand. Will he be held accountable for ruining the Unity brand? Probably not. He got a fat payout, and is probably going to wind up ruining another icon soon enough. Actually, let's see what he's up to now. Wait, he founded a Pilates studio? Follow your passion, I guess. And then we have Lars Wingefors, CEO of Embracer Group. Self-made though he was, he's taking a big page out of Jack's book. Starting in 2017, Lars started his spree of mergers and acquisitions of game studios. Between 2017 and 2023, they added over 100 studios under that umbrella. This string of acquisitions paid off, and he quickly received a $1 billion investment from the Saudi government. Don't worry about the long list of human rights abuses tied to that money. Lars says there's, quote, different views on the topic. At the end of 2023, Lars closed studios and laid off 1,400 people in an attempt to, quote, restore investor confidence. In a move to further appease investors, Embracer sold off Gearbox and Rainbow Studios, leading to countless more losing their jobs, as the stock value nearly doubled in the month that followed. You know, with all the focus on stock value, I'm starting to suspect that Lars didn't acquire these studios just to make the best games possible. Are you starting to get the picture here? The recent trends we're seeing in the games industry, the recent management decisions that seem so criminally short-sighted, it's all just the Jack Welch playbook of maximizing short-term gain. Jack's influence ruined the American corporation, and it's why the games industry feels like it's dying now. But it isn't like this everywhere. Unlike the US, Japan has robust worker safeguards, making layoffs a last resort by law. This legal framework ensures a level of job security that's practically unheard of in the West, and opens a company up to lawsuits if they try. There's also this concept of, Shusen Koyo, lifetime employment. Employees are genuinely hired with the expectation that they'll stay with the company until they retire.
Bounce.
Imagine that level of job security. Remember the Wii U? It flopped. Nintendo was losing money. So what did CEO Satoru Iwata do? He cut his own salary in half instead of laying off his employees. In a shareholder meeting on the topic, he said, quote, employees make valuable contributions. Laying off a group of employees will not help. Japanese companies think long term. They're all about the marathon, not the sprint. This approach is part of why 6 out of the 10 oldest operating companies in the world are Japanese. It's kind of a big deal. And it's not just about keeping jobs. Japanese companies often provide extensive benefits to their employees, including housing, healthcare, and recreational facilities. And yes, I know Japanese work culture has plenty of its own problems, but this video isn't about that. The point I'm making is that the success of companies like Nintendo shows us that running a business with compassion and a focus on long-term stability isn't just possible, it can lead to real success. That the Jack Welch School of Management isn't the only way. Alright, this video has gone on long enough, but if you're sick of the current system, there's 2 things I think you can do. Let me know in the comments what you think. First, find Jack Welch. Second, buy indie. It's not a perfect answer, obviously, but if we want an industry built on creativity and passion, over one ruled by spreadsheets and quarterly reports, we have to support companies that value their creators over those that treat them as disposable assets. Anyways, thanks for watching.